It's the early May bank holiday in 2019, and in Winchester's Broadway, under the watchful gaze of King Alfred, the friends of King Alfred buses are gathering for the start of their annual running day. This is the moment when the many months of hard work and meticulous planning come to fruition.
I'm afraid it's going to be a bit chaotic today. Have you got your instruction sheet?
Yeah, go right round, can't he?
But it promises to be a fine day, and the open-top Atlantean is sure to be popular. And potential passengers are already waiting for a free ride.
I'm heading off to Winchester.
The Atlantean's driver now skillfully negotiates the wide U-turn needed to reach the stop where the passengers are waiting. And the running day is always a popular event for bus enthusiasts and photographers. While passengers are waiting for the bus to depart, there is plenty for them to read. Finally, the moment arrives, and we're off. The Atlantean is one of 14 former King Alfred vehicles owned and restored by Friends of King Alfred buses, and most of them will be giving free rides around the city and to nearby villages during the day. Climbing Magdalen Hill provides a grand view of the cathedral and the rooftops of the city. Although tickets are issued, no fare is charged. But the tickets are not just souvenirs for the passengers, they also provide a tally of how many are carried during the day. King Alfred Motor Services operated bus routes in and around Winchester for over 50 years, and the green and cream livery was a familiar sight on its streets, in nearby villages, and particularly in the Broadway where all the routes began and ended. Now here's something rather unusual. When King Alfred ceased operating in 1973, many of the fleet passed into the ownership of Hanson Dorset, a company which also ran bus services in the area. At that time, Hanson Dorset was part of the National Bus Company, and had adopted a standard poppy red livery. 30 years ago, this former King Alfred AEC Renown bus was rescued and restored, and to commemorate that event, Friends of King Alfred buses have decided to give it the appearance it had in 1973, after it had transferred to Hanson Dorset. Its design was actually quite similar in many ways to some existing Hanson Dorset buses, like these two Lodecas, one in the National Bus Company livery, the other in the original Hanson Dorset green. Both these vehicles have now arrived at the cattle market, where a number of visiting buses and coaches are on display. The King Alfred routes were numbered from 1 to 21, with the exception of 14, for this was the number of the service provided by Aldershot and District between Winchester and Aldershot. So, to avoid confusion, King Alfred sensibly omitted 14 from its route numbers. Now, here is a selection of other visiting vehicles, some of which originated a long way from Winchester, like this one, previously owned by Glasgow Corporation. This Leyland Olympic is the most recently completed restoration of a regular service bus by Friends of King Alfred buses. It was rescued from a farm in Ireland in a very derelict state. Restoration then took 7 or 8 years before it was eventually fit to run and to carry passengers. Leyland Titan POU 494 was originally delivered to King Alfred Motor Services in 1956. At the moment, it's Vocab's only example of a rear entry bus, although another model is under restoration.
Okay.
Where's that?
Because several routes passed under low bridges carrying the main railway line from Waterloo to Southampton, King Alfred always owned a significant number of single-deckers. This Leyland Tiger is a good example.
Legs out.
CCA.
On running days, the short trips on the oldest member of the fleet, a 1931 Dennis, are always very popular. Finally, setting off to Stanmore is a Leyland Panther, a fitting final contributor to our film, since it was in fact the last King Alfred service bus ever to run before the company ceased trading in 1973. And as the buses return to the Broadway at the end of the day, what's the final verdict on proceedings? Vocab Chairman James Freeman.
Well, it hasn't rained, and we've had lots and lots of people come. I'd say this has been the best of the May running days that we've had so far, so maybe we're getting back into routine, having changed the date. It's quite a tricky thing to do, to change the date from January, and it's taken, 3 years to get us to the point where people are now used to it.
Broadway oil change, please.
Yeah, there have been a few breakdowns, not so much breakdowns on service, but buses that have failed to make it or didn't actually happen or whatever it was. But generally, pretty good. So I'd say thank you very much, Fate. It's done us all right.